And we are live. Welcome back to Under Pressure Live. What's up, Jake?
How you doing, Brad? I'm happy to be here. It's been a great week of some conversations coming back from some of these events, so I'm excited to touch upon some of the more relevant and timely conversations in the industry. So
Yeah, I am too. I'm
nice to
I'm
see you.
anxious to hear what you have. So I'm riding over here, right? So I left lunch and I'm coming back to the house and the radio's playing in the background. You know, I'm from North Carolina, so it's a country radio station,
Hmm.
and we do have other radio stations, but I listen to country music. And so it's playing this commercial, and it starts going, and it's like, do you have three greedy ex-wives and your newest trophy wife is demanding a bigger uh, insurance policy than the last three combined?
Hmm.
And I'm just thinking, who are they targeting here? And then it just goes on, and it's like, call Big Lou, and it's like it was this funny commercial selling. This guy does term life insurance, right?
Yep.
Um, the tagline is at the end of the commercial is Big Lou is just like you, except he's only on number two.
So
Someone paid
that's
for this,
great.
Jake. Somebody
That's
paid for
great.
this ad spot.
So who
And
is his target audience?
that's
But
what I'm saying. And is there enough of them listening to the radio? Eh,
well, even if not, maybe someone with one divorce is listening, and that stands out so much that hey, and this is a testament to it. You're speaking about it now after because it's stuck in your memory. So maybe that was his point.
you know what? That's the truth. I've not had a conversation about too many radio commercials. So apparently, Big Lou has figured something out. You know, Jake, we're going to have to remedy my internet. I see it like warning all over the place. So,
It's a little bit slow on my end. But so what I will say to the Big Lou, congratulations, Big Lou. You just got your promotional material has legs here. We're talking about it on a live show. I'm sure, there are probably other people who are talking about it after. So that does go to show you, hey, there's some power in viral marketing, I guess, if you're if you're
well, you
usually
know,
speaking to
and
a
I
niche
think
group.
it's an interesting segue, you know, into what we wanted to talk about today. You know, the title of this episode is it the wrong time
Hmm.
to grow your business? And as things slow down, and they are slowing down in some respect. I mean, I would love to say, oh, have you felt a slowdown? There's definitely a slowdown economically right now. The environment is changing. Um, you know, what do you do when things slow down? Do you keep pushing forward to grow? Is it time to like pull back and constrict as much as possible? I mean, what do you do? And I think about the tactics that you can take. And I was listening to this commercial, and you know, it's one of my favorite things to talk about because it seems like such a um, is it still relevant? Is
Hmm.
radio still relevant? You know, is this type of advertising? I mean, if you were looking to grow your business and get your name out there, you know, would you use that source? And I think that, you know, when it comes to growth in our business, we have a very narrow viewpoint of what that means. And we kind of go back to the same wells that we know. For some businesses, it's radio. Now, I think radio does a pretty good job there. They have an outbound sales strategy to local businesses, and they kind of lean on you to get a contract to do advertising with them. I
Hmm.
doubt a lot of small businesses are like calling up the radio station and saying, you know, let me advertise with you. But you know, that being said, it's one of the usual suspects, and I think, you know, when it comes to you know, other marketing, a lot of small businesses, they have other wells that are just as usual suspects. When things slow down and we say, should you press for growth? Should you continue to push on your advertising or your marketing or your sales? I think the first thing is, you know, so should I be spending more money or keep my spend the same in
Hmm.
these, you know, going back to these same wells? So I think these are all interesting conversations, but let's start with with that topic, unless you had some other things you wanted to share first. I know I just jumped right
No,
in.
that was great. And the one thought I have coming up right there is, whether it's thoughts on marketing right now or growth in your business and, how you've set up your business, the structure of it, I think it all comes down to your specific situation, right? There is no answer for everyone and say, hey, yeah, I've got my finger on the pulse. This is what I think's going on. This is the cookie cutter answer. There is no answer for everyone that works for everyone. So you really need to just sit down and kind of audit your own business and say, hey, are these decisions right for me now? It might be right for the industry in general, but is it right for my business and the way I've structured it and the foundation I have? So I think that's for overarching for everything. Obviously, everyone knows it's got to work for your business. But I think if you're asking that question, that's step one. You should be asking these questions here. That's step one of figuring it out, is just saying, hey, I've got my finger on the pulse. Now I have to look at it and say, hey, is it time to grow? Is it time to put money into marketing? That's step one right there.
Are you saying that the answer is it depends?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's everybody's favorite answer, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to talk to people who that you have relationships with, who can build relationships with. Because if you're building those relationships, they not only get to know you better, but get to know your business better and can give you more relevant information. Because if you just shoot an email to Brad and he doesn't know you and you say, hey, is it time to grow or is it a bad time to grow? He's going to say, does it? It depends. So at the end of the day, it does highlight the importance of having your finger on the pulse, building relationships, and working with others within your own industry who know what's going on so that you can kind of come to the best decision for your business today.
I feel like at this point in the show, we need like a big sign, a big market, a big disclaimer that says, please consult a professional before making decisions about your business. You know,
Absolutely.
uh,
Yeah.
it's super interesting though that you say that. It definitely depends. I would even say the first step in answering these questions about your business, growth, not growth, what do we do, what do we not do, is taking an honest assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And I am like so wrapped up right now. Like I am like deep into Jocko, and I can't say his last name. Is it Willink?
Willink, yep.
Yeah. And I just got through Extreme Ownership. I've been listening to some podcasts with him. I'm actually listening to the next book in it, The Dichotomy of Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to him on a Joe Rogan podcast last night, right? And he
Good
was
episode.
talking about all these situations in society right now. And when we get under pressure, the economy's changing. We're feeling the pressure to do something different. Things that were working are not working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We start to become emotional. Fear leads us to be emotional. Now, they were talking about something totally different, but I thought it was super relevant to this conversation because when we start thinking about what's going on in our business, we're so close to our business.
Mm-hmm.
Often emotions are affecting our decisions. And if we're like, if our decisions about growth or a business direction or a pivot are centered on emotions, almost always, and this is like wisdom from somebody who is, I mean, he certainly wrote the book on leadership,
Mm-hmm.
but it's wisdom that you're going to get yourself in trouble. That to make good decisions, to lead your business, to lead your life, you have to make decisions outside of emotion. And so the way the lens we're viewing our business through, the lens we're viewing the world through, is often rooted in emotion. So I think the first step, that was a lot of words to say. I think the first step is to take the honest look at what's going on outside, what's going on here,
Mm-hmm.
and evaluate what is the situation. What's the battlefield? What do I bring to the table? What do my troops look like?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I've been listening to so many military stories. It's like all I can think right now.
But
But
that's easily translated to this industry where you say, all right, maybe you're not looking at your troops, but you can be looking at demand. What does the demand look like? Is it time to grow because I can't service the amount of demand I have? I don't have the capacity for the demand. There's just there is a great translation there, and it all makes sense.
so taking that hard look at your business, where are you at in your business? Um, how have you approached the last economy? You know, the last economic climate, like where we've been at, like what decisions were you making?
Hmm.
Um, you know, I think about what happened during the last big downturn, you know, the 2008 recession. And our family business, it was a building and developing business. And we had two residential neighborhoods and a office complex that were under construction, under development during that time. And if you're not familiar with real estate developing, the time frames to do those types of things are long.
Hmm.
Like it had been years of red tape, years of zoning and preparation to put this into play. It wasn't in 2007 or 2008 we're like, should we do this or not? These were very long horizons that were in play. And so when if you had asked us at the beginning of 2009 after the market had hit bottom, what decisions do we make? Well, growing or not growing or moving forward or not moving forward looks very different for different businesses. And in our business at that point, we couldn't be like, oh, well, we're just going to not do these anymore.
Hmm.
Oh, the market's going away. No, we had a, you know, a 24 unit office complex, no, 28 unit office complex. The units had to be sold. We own them.
Hmm.
So the decisions about growth or how to move forward. Now, it would have been a really bad time for us to say, let's go find another piece of land and develop another neighborhood. We have to make decisions, just like you said, based on the circumstances we're in. And that just, I think that's a really, that sits very different, right? If my business over the last 6 months has doubled my staff,
Hmm.
right? My team is twice as big, then, and my plan was to double it again over the next 12 months and things are slowing down, then I might have to think the mission is to keep the people fed that I'm responsible for today. The timetables on my hires may need to change. So when we say grow or not grow, it's not a blanket statement, because I think we both have opinions about what can be done in a shifting market,
Absolutely.
but you've also got to be smart. You know, you've got to survive. Like my favorite, I love to use the last recession because I think there's some really like really broad, like some really evident, like what's the word?
Examples
Obvious
or
stories
yep.
that we can draw from that. So we were in knee deep. We had no choice,
Hmm.
and it was ugly. But people that weren't knee deep, when things went down, they they consolidated their resources, and by 2010, even though the market looked like it was just totally depressed, they started looking, and by 2011 they were buying.
Hmm.
And those people became fabulously wealthy over the last decade. Like you went from people who were like living in their mother's house to driving a McLaren,
Hmm.
you know. And I'm just thinking of a specific story of a guy I know that got involved in multifamily real estate. You
Yeah.
know, market was down 2010. He buys a duplex, you know, and then he
Yep.
buys another duplex, and he does the monopoly. He trades the duplexes for quadplexes and the quadplexes for commercial multifamily. Next thing you know, he's got, you know, 4, 5, 600 units under management, and he's driving a $300,000 car they paid
Hmm.
for in cash. But and I think those are just examples that I think just make it simple. So there's opportunity when things go down. So the short answer is it the wrong time to grow? Well, I don't think so. But it
I,
needs a strategic mindset behind it.
Absolutely. And that strategic mindset is, to me, it's about thinking relative to time, right? How far ahead are you thinking? Are you planning a few years ahead because you know that the economy is cyclical? There are business cycles. You have peaks and troughs in the economy, and you know it's always going to come back. So you're now taking those troughs, the downtimes, and using those to your advantage by getting what you could call like discounts. Oh, everything's on sale. Yeah, people are struggling, and that is when you can go and grab market share. Now, I also think there's a difference, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday before this show, about the difference between growth and scaling, in my opinion. And depending on how you use the words in your business's vocabulary and in your world, growth to me can be more than just scaling the business. So scaling, I like to think adding equipment, adding personnel, adding capacity. growth can be all that, but I think growth can also be, how are you, like Nikki says here, positioned to pivot? Are you really taking the time to assess your situation and growing internally by like growing yourself? Are you reading books when there's a downturn, there's less jobs? Are you just focusing on making your business more efficient and more effective, so that now when the opportunity comes to say, hey, let's get into this market through an acquisition, or let's expand into another market, are you ready to go? Are you positioned to pivot when the opportunities present themselves? So there are going to be opportunities. I always think it's a time to grow if you're thinking in the terms of growth doesn't just have to be standard growth. It could be personal growth. It could be really refining the way you operate. But is it time to scale? I don't know. It might not be, because there could be a lot of things going on in your market where you're saying, hey, we have the capacity. Over the past few years, we've been booming. We built out a capacity, and now we don't have the demand to really keep that capacity at full tilt and afford
I'm
it.
I'm listening to you. I'm making a I'm making some
So,
notes here so I don't forget what these
and
things I think we should talk about.
And the reason why Brad and I brought this topic up today is because in the past few weeks, we've had a lot of conversations with a lot of contractors in many home service industries who are asking themselves this question. This is a common question now. Is it the time to grow? Do I dump the money into marketing? Do I look to grow through acquisitions? And that is the question you have to ask yourself. What kind of capacity do you have? What kind of demand are you seeing? And can you fulfill it now? What's it going to look like in a couple of years? So I think if you can slowly build in a time like this, and you're able to survive and then position yourself to thrive by maybe having the best systems in place,
Mhm.
really, really having efficient systems, and efficient personnel, you're ready to thrive now when the market bounces back.
So I think we talked about there's several types of growth here, and I think we
Mhm.
should go through them one by one. Um, Going back to like where you are now, shout out to Dirk over at Bergflow. Had a conversation with him a couple of months ago, and he was talking about um, that a lot of the people that he knew that were kind of on a wealthier spectrum, they were already like they were selling overvalued investments.
Mhm.
They weren't still trying to squeeze them for anymore. Then they were sitting on the sideline with their resources because they know when things slow down, there's deals to be had, right? I mean, one of the simplest concepts in the creation of wealth is buy low, sell high.
Yeah.
What actually happens though is when things are high, everyone goes into a frenzy to buy.
You can't get swept up by emotion, right?
Yeah, it's emotional. You don't want to miss out. The FOMO kicks in, and people don't operate. But people that understand how this works, and I would like to say wealthy people, I don't know if that's maybe the best way to say it, but accomplished investors and business people are thinking opposite. When things get really high, they're like, I'm gonna leave a little bit of this on the table.
Mhm.
I got my upside. I'm gonna bring it back because I know there's gonna be deals to be had again. You buy when it's 50 cents on the dollar.
I love this concept because this is not a new concept at all. It's crazy how you're right that whether you want to call it the educated, the super wealthy, the people who have access to the information here, that it's like the next level of information, have been thinking about this for years. In the 18th century, Baron Rothschild was quoted with this famous quote that is super applicable here. It's the quote is, "The time to buy is when there's blood in the streets."
Yeah,
When people are freaking out, that's when you get those Black Friday deals.
I no, it's a really, really that's a harsh concept, but it is one that is proven true. You know, the greatest fortunes are made after the worst wars.
Yeah,
So, but here's the
yeah.
thing. Here's the reality, and I bring this up because I think that that's really good advice if you had planned for it.
Mhm.
But I know that many of us in a working trade, who whether we're pressure washing company owners or we are vendors or whatever, we haven't been living that way. Let's just be real. This is why you have to take that honest look. You might look in the bank and be like, look, I got like a nest egg for if things slow down for the next 90 days or 180 days, but I don't have like money to go all in on an investment.
Mhm.
It's too late. It's too late. If you don't have the resources ready now, it's too late. which is
Well,
unfortunate. So you have to take a different approach.
absolutely.
And back
And
to what Dirk had said, when we were talking, is he said, if you don't have resources, you have to be resourceful.
mhm,
So if you have a small business and you haven't set aside resources to go take advantage of the deals yet, it's okay. You have to go look into your resources and say, where can I be resourceful? And maybe what I have to do is figure out another way to take advantage of the shift.
absolutely. And I just want to say this because you had a great point there, which is that if you feel like you missed the boat, conveniently, these are cyclical cycles, right? These cycles happen over and over again. These business cycles are cyclical here, obviously, but the huge thing is you can learn from these situations and then have that in your memory bank moving forward. So if someone just started their business now, you say, all right, this is something that happens. There is going to be a cycle. I can now be prepared for the next time that there's a dip in the economy. And then someone who you can look to that and say, hey, someone who was in business 14 years ago and just started their business, and this was a memory that was seared in their mind because they took such a drastic hit. Now you don't have to take that drastic hit because you've learned it. So what I'd say is, hey, if you were around 14 years ago and you lived through this, it's kind of your responsibility to share that with the new guys that you want to help grow. That's why I love mentorship too. So if you're brand new, you haven't lived through this before, find someone who has and say, hey, what did you do? Find a couple of people, see what worked for them. And then you can kind of tailor that to your own business and say, hey, how do I improve my business to weather this storm? Or how do I set myself up best for the future? Because, there will be periods of booming growth again, and there will be recession periods again. So it's all
Yeah.
about learning. And if business is all about learning as much as you can, I'd say you got to use these experiences as massive learning tools.
Yeah. Some of this you have to put away and save for a rainy day. You're going to have to say, look, I wish I could take advantage of the deals that are going to come up over the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months, but I can't. But what I'm going to remember is when we come out strong on the other side, I'm going to start putting something away.
Mm-hmm.
So the next time, 7 years from now, 10 years from now, when this happens again, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to have that rainy day fund, not to save for the sake of saving, but saving because I know that it'll allow me to do something to take advantage of that. And that's how you really get ahead. So not what this podcast is about. I apologize for the side note. So let's talk about some other types of growth
Mm-hmm.
that you can do. I loved that you brought up personal growth because that doesn't cost anything.
No.
Right. And when we're busy, the last thing that we do when we're up early and we're working till late at night, we're not reading books. We're not taking classes. But when things slow down, it's probably the first thing that you kind of tend to be like, well, I'm not going to spend money on that. But now's the time to invest in yourself.
Yes, Brad. I mean, I see this with owner operators all the time that say they don't have the time. Well, if in a time like this your demand is a little bit lower and now you're not scheduled as much as you were, take advantage of that time. Maybe it would actually be beneficial to keep your marketing where it is, not increase it, and take a little bit of the downtime to go read a book that can then improve the way you run your business. And so now you're getting more value out of that than the one job you could have done in that time.
Yeah, the best investment you ever make is into your own growth and into the training and growth of your people. And that applies whether you have a helper or you have a full-on leadership team in your business.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing applies. If you look at, I'm not trying to like point fingers at anybody, but I can hear it. I can hear the mentality of, well, I just have a guy that I'm paying 18, 20 bucks an hour to, he's unwinding hoses. What am I going to invest in him? He's 20 years old. But that guy, he's going to be somebody's future leader or he's not, but he can be your future leader,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an opportunity when things slow down that you can spend those off days getting better. If you need to drum up sales, if you have someone else on your team, practice with your team. Do the sales calls that you don't want to make. Start practicing. Hey, we don't have a job today. We need to go out and sell. I know that we're not comfortable knocking on doors. I don't like knocking on doors. I don't like making sales phone calls. I mean, some people do. Some people are just total sadists or masochists, I guess is the word, because it's not inflicting pain, it's the pain in
Yep.
yourself. Total masochists about it. But, you know, if you're not, if you're like everybody else and you're a little unsure of that, pick someone on your team. Or maybe it's a fellow business owner, because we all have relationships with other people in the industry. And you get on the phone and you practice those uncomfortable calls and you get better. You know, it's another thing that like you hear about when you listen to guys like Jocko, who are
Mm-hmm.
highly trained operators in the SEALs, is they spend 18 months practicing before they do a 6-month deployment.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it to practice? Right?
Very. Yeah.
It doesn't exist in the real world, though. We just
Mm-hmm.
learn as we go. We learn as we do. And the things we're not doing, we're getting rusty at. So I think that's a way for personal growth. I cannot recommend enough, like reading books. You know, I know that there's kind of a stigma around that, like, oh, you're just going to read yourself into inaction. But when things slow down, you don't know what to do. Maybe read a book. It'll give you some ideas, whether it's on marketing or on sales or on leadership or on business strategy. So another kind of growth that you brought up that I love is systems growth.
Yes.
I'm share a thought on that before I just keep talking.
Sorry, I got a distracting text there in the a phone call, but there's something I did want to say. What were you just discussing right
So I was
there?
talking about, I don't know. I was talking about practicing
Okay,
and
practice.
reading when things slow down and investing in yourself.
Okay, so investing in yourself is obviously the number one thing you can do in business, because if you're an owner operator of one of these businesses, you know, you're the lifeblood of the business. So you do need to invest in yourself as much as you invest in the training and the systems of everyone else. Because a lot of the people think, hey, if I got me here, I can get me further. But you really need an influx of information to take yourself to the next level. And then I also wanted to talk about other industries. You can learn from other industries. It doesn't have to just be within this industry. You can go to someone who's done some sort of business growth in another industry and say, hey, what did you read? What podcast did you listen to? You can pull things from all other industries, resource wise. It doesn't just have to be from your specific industry, from this pressure washing industry that we're talking about today. And
Yeah.
so,
You have to remind yourself of that, Mr. Man of Many Podcasts, which industry you're talking about.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I get.
No,
I get stuck, but there's one important thing there. You just said, do I have to remind myself? Yes, because the conversations in both spaces that I do podcasts for, both in the home inspection space and the pressure washing space, both conversations overlap so much that I do have to constantly remind myself, which industry am I speaking to? And I actually
I'm
use
gonna tell you
podcasts
what,
for both.
though, if you want good marketing ideas, go to a neighboring industry,
Mm-hmm.
because the thing they're doing that maybe a whole lot of people are doing may not be being done where you're at. The best thing is don't hack other people in your industry's marketing, hack the marketing of other industries. So check out the inspection podcast, the Inspection Pros podcast. There are guys on there that are amazing marketers helping grow $5-10 million companies in that space. Learn from what they're doing and figure out how you apply it over here to the pressure washing space.
And let me
You
tell
know,
you, the
there's a
same
guy I know,
conversations happen there.
and we're going to bring him on, Marvin, who runs Blacktop Banner in the
Mm-hmm.
asphalt space. We've been seeing a lot of posts come up here lately where guys are talking about branching over into that space. Go learn what they're doing over there, even if you don't offer the service. And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. We're going to talk to Marvin about that. But what you should do is go figure out what they're doing, because that's a cottage industry too. There's a whole lot of paving that goes on and asphalt sealing and striping. That's not the guys out doing the highway, not the DOT work, but in all the parking lots of every business everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So but go learn from somebody, especially in adjacent industries. I love the thought of that.
And
But I do want to go ahead.
real quick, what that can help you understand too is the difference between the scarcity and abundance mindset. If you're looking at other industries, you kind of realize that there's more than you're pigeonholed to see. So like if you have your horse blinders on and you're day to day and you're focused on what you're doing because it's working, you know, 2 years ago I did the split testing on what I should do for growth, and this is where it's really working for me. And now you're full bore into that. You kind of forget the periphery. You forget what's going on around you. So looking at other industries can help open up your vision to see, hey, what else is going on? Because one of these conversations I've recently had that the home inspection community is talking about is the scarcity versus abundance mindset. Everyone's in the abundance mindset when the economy is going well. But then once things take 1 percentage point dip down, it's,
Yeah.
oh, tighten everything, fire everyone, tighten
Yeah.
up, like stop spending on marketing. So you really have to, look at other industries, look at information to kind of broaden your perspective so you can hold on to that abundance mindset and say, hey, there is so much out there. I might just have to shift what I'm looking at.
Man, I love that. That is so funny. It's like it's easy to have an abundance mindset when there's an abundance.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a whole lot harder to have an abundance mindset when someone's trying to eat your lunch.
Hmm.
But that's what that means. That's what having a bunch. So I want to talk about
Yeah.
systems growth next. Uh, you know, another thing that as a small business owner, I've never had time to do is write SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures. No one ever has time to do that. But it is an Achilles heel of unorganized or small businesses, right? We all know how we do what we do, but we struggle to pass that knowledge along to people because only we know how to do X skill or
Hmm.
X job or file this or whatever, right? So when things slow down, a great way to prepare yourself for growth is to start doing that task that you don't want to do because now you have some time to write those SOPs.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I think that's one of the biggest fallacies in a lot of industries. I think mostly in entrepreneurship and small business. One of the biggest fallacies is no one can do it better than I can. But get those SOPs down and show it to someone and ask them if they could do it. I think you'd be surprised. What are you doing day to day? Take a break, write that down. It's not that hard. I recently had to do it actually for some of the day-to-day stuff I was doing with podcasts, and I was shocked at how easy it was to hand it over to someone else. And at the end of the day, you're not going to learn unless you do it. And Brad, you've talked about practice. So if you're worried about being able to write SOPs, start with something super simple you do and just write down how you're doing it step by step. And there you go. There's draft number one. Do it with the next task you do and the next task. And now you're practicing as you're doing it. It's really not that hard. And you can't fall into the fallacy of no one else can do it better than I can. Because take a look around. There's a lot of pressure washing companies. Other people can do it and are capable. It all comes down to the time and energy and capital investment you're willing to put into people.
There's a limiting belief around that my skill is what sets me apart.
It's your
That's
drive.
the difference between a technician and a business owner.
Yeah. I,
A business owner understands that skill can be transferred.
and I,
Anybody can.
Absolutely. And I think with a small business, it's absolutely the owner has the equity stake in the company. That's the drive. That's what motivates that drive. That's where you're getting that drive from. So while you might have skill, there are other people who can be trained to that skill. You should be hiring to fire yourself and replace yourself. We've talked about that before. But what's the difference there in the technician versus the owner is going to be drive and the motivation to push the company because you have a stake in it. There's something to lose, and obviously for a technician, it's going to be the paycheck, the job. But you have to somehow figure out how to create that buy-in because the skill is transferable. You can learn skills, you can teach someone skills, but also you can kind of motivate through incentives so that someone has a little bit of the motivation you have. Because I feel like that is the key factor in what pushes a business owner.
There is another limiting belief that if I teach someone else everything I know, I've just trained my competition. And if that were true, if that was the difference, how do companies ever go from small companies to big companies?
No one would ever teach anyone anything.
But you have to cross these limiting beliefs because the very foundation of growth, at the heart of all growth, is your ability to replace yourself in the things you do in your business.
Mm-hmm.
This is true for you as the owner, operator, CEO. It's true for you if you have a leadership position, and it's true for you if you are on the front lines and you want to have a leadership position. If you can learn the skill of showing someone else how to do what you do and empowering them to do it like you do it, that's the foundation of growth. That's how
Mm-hmm.
you move up. That's how you move an organization forward. And every business owner's goal should be, how do I replace myself in every single task and job that I do in my business? Because if I do that, I get to go on vacation while my business operates.
Absolutely.
What are you doing?
And I actually recently just had a conversation with a pressure washer that I met in Nashville about this exact topic. He started a new company. It's fairly new. He's around a year in, something like that. And the struggle he had was saying, "Hey, how do I grow my company while being able to spend time with my kids?" And I don't think that was even in the front of his mind there, the thought that, hey, I can hire someone to replace myself on a truck and now the company can be going while I'm spending time with my family. So that is totally, that whole horse blinders thing is that you've been doing it one way, you get pigeonholed into that one way you're doing it, but you have to realize, take a look around. Oh, look at that. Jim John over there at XYZ pressure washing hasn't been on his truck in a year. How's he doing it? So you could absolutely
Jim
train.
John.
I don't know, just coming up with some generic name.
Sorry.
But
You know, if Jim John's doing it, then it's probably a good thing. No, I'm 100% with you on all that. It's really interesting, and it goes back to what we kind of fell into at the beginning of our conversation. This idea that personal growth, which is like
mhm,
a lot of it's the growth around what you believe to be possible.
mhm,
The growth of your mindset, the growth of how you think, the growth of how you operate, who you are, is really going to determine how things play out for you in any economic climate. When things are going good, mistakes and poor habits are masked by the fact that they're just going well.
mhm.
And everything's headed up. It's hard to lose. And you're like, I know what I'm doing. My business is growing.
That's a good point. One thing I think of based off of that is a conversation that we definitely didn't have on this live because it was a while ago. But I think you and I might have had this conversation in a podcast in either the home inspection space or the pressure washing space a little while ago, which was the concept of burning the boats. Did we talk about that?
Not on our podcast, but I love the
So
concept. Go
So
on.
that is one huge thing about growth that I don't know if it's the time to do now when you're worried about the economy, which was the concept of growth and taking a leap of faith by burning the boats. It's like, this is what we're doing. We're here. So maybe it's a time where you think, hey, we can go full bore into things, but not all the way full, but we can tilt heavy into things, but maybe have a little bit of a backup plan instead of burning the boats. The concept of burning the boats, I love, of going into something and then like saying there's no way we're going back from this. We're 100% committed to this. So I think now maybe the way to growth isn't burning the boats, and it's kind of feeling it out more, dipping your toes in and trying things to see what works and how you can position yourself to pivot. And
Yeah.
thank you, Al, for the nice comment down there. I'm just seeing.
I brought it up for a second, but I didn't want to blow your head up too much, so I took it away. So
Thanks,
I
Fred.
think I think the next type of growth. Let's talk about the type of growth that everybody thinks about, right? Like
Mhm.
sales growth, top line growth. Jake, what is your thoughts on it? Is a slowdown in the market still a good time to go after top line sales growth?
Yes, I mean, it's the lifeblood of your business, right? How are you going to keep the lights on and the trucks moving and gassed up if there's no sales? So you might have to pivot how you're coming up with these sales, but through that process of figuring out how to pivot, you might learn something new that you can not only use to weather the storm, but then to leap ahead and put rocket fuel into your business when there's a boom in the economy. So I think sales growth is important. It's something that you never want to shut off, but it's something that you can kind of turn the dials on. So if we're talking about growth as not just blowing up your business, again, personnel, equipment, capacity wise, if we're talking about growing your business as really figuring out how to make what you have more efficient, I think that, well, you always kind of want to be increasing your sales. And in my opinion, you might make it a dial that it's always something that's always running, but you're increasing or decreasing your marketing to increase or decrease the level of sales, because you're not always, like, say you're on pace to hire uh one operator a month, and now at the end of the day you're not doing that anymore. It's not the right situation. So the sales, you don't have the capacity for. So I in my opinion, coming back around, you got to know what you're looking to do, what your business um, can actually sustainably produce, what kind of production you can do. If you have the capacity for it, absolutely turn up the sales always. But if you don't have the capacity for it because you're trying to run more lean in a certain situation, I'd say maybe turn down the marketing. It might be the time then to turn down the marketing. Have the constant flow, never turn it off, but adjust, know where you're at and adjust.
I think those are valid points. You
Sorry
know,
for
some,
another it depends answer.
no, I don't think that was an it depends answer. I think you said that you have to keep going out and getting new sales. I think there's a couple of types of things you have to think about is when things are getting better, like, and I think, we are suppliers of vendor, servicing in this industry, right? And I think the guys on the front lines doing the service have experienced some of the same things.
Hmm.
But over the last few years, let's say this is my pool of clients, right? And let's say there's 10 people in this pool. Part of the growth that we have experienced is those 10 people continue to spend more and more money because their businesses are getting more and more successful.
Hmm.
Of those 10 clients, all of them have either gotten a new truck that needs equipment, or they've added trucks to their fleet that need equipment, right? They're doing more jobs than they were before, so they have to use more of the chemicals, more of the disposables, more of the parts that go bad. So we're experiencing growth that has nothing to do with us going out and selling more.
Hmm.
If I'm on the front lines and I'm a service provider, when I go to a house to wash it, you know, maybe there was a time when people wanted like the basic wash. Well, when things are going up, there's more money in the economy. We've really experienced this with all the influx over the last year and a half, 2 years, right? All the extra government money is now they're like, yeah, throw in the roof wash, do the extra service, I want the premium package.
Hmm.
And so even if I'm still only getting 100 new clients a year, I'm not now getting 150 new clients a year, but my 100 clients are spending more and more and more money. What we've kind of gotten ourselves lulled into a false reality,
Hmm.
right? It feels really good. It's like, yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm growing. But growth from a sales perspective means if I was selling 10 contracts last year, I need to sell 11 next year. Not I still sold 10, people are just spending more money. And another reality that we face is as things cost more, I'm selling 10, but I charge more because of inflation, right?
Hmm.
So growth is not, you can't just attach it to top line. So I think of sales, I need to go out and get new sales because here's what's happening. Of those 10 guys, right? Those 10 service providers that are doing business with me, two of them might not be in business anymore. And I hope not. I hope they're all able to stay in business. Maybe two don't.
Hmm.
Now I've got 8. And those 8 are like, well, gas is really expensive. People are spending less money having their houses washed. So I'd like to have a new machine, but let's limp this one I have along.
Hmm.
I don't think I can get that third truck this year like I thought I could. Let's put it off to next year. So I haven't lost customer base, but my top line sales start getting pulled back, right? So it's not about seeing more revenue. More or less revenue is not necessarily sales growth or loss, right? It's, I may have to go out and find 5 new customers, not 2.
Mm-hmm.
I might need 13 or 14 or 15 to maintain the same top line revenue that I was getting in a new economy. If I'm washing houses and people are not doing, and I'm going back and forth here, I'm doing my hand thing.
Yep.
But if people are not washing their houses anymore, then maybe my new sales growth is I have to sell a new service, maybe to a new niche.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't stop pursuing inbound revenue, because here's the thing is what's happening is it's exposing the things we weren't doing. You know, we had people coming to us. The demand was so strong with a Google My Business listing. We're like, that's marketing. It's barely marketing.
Mm-hmm.
That's like having a sign on your building. It's the equivalent, right? In 2022, having a GMB is the same thing as having a sign on your building and saying, well, people do business. I'm a good marketer. I got a sick GMB. Have you seen, I put new photos up. That's not marketing. It's having a sign up. And when demand is really strong, they called the other 3 people they saw on there and they either didn't answer their phone because they're busy or they were booked out for a month. So they called you and you're like, yeah, I'll do it. That's not, you didn't do anything. You were the recipient of a situation. And so what's going to happen is we're going to have to get into situations where we are now responsible for creating pipeline in our business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go have to get it. And all of a sudden it's like, it's, I eat what I kill, not I eat what walks through the front door.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean? It's a change in mindset. So you're going to have sale. It is time for sales growth. It's time to invest and make sure that there's someone at your business that's going after the business, because they're going to have to go after it harder than they were 12 months ago or 24 months ago. They're going to have to push harder. So if you fire the only person that's doing that and your business is, well, if I'm on a job, I'm not selling. And if I'm not on a job, I am selling. You're going to be in for a rough ride. Sorry, I get
Absolutely.
passionate.
No, and I'm glad we got into the marketing. I know you had a couple other types of growth you want to discuss, but do you want to talk about marketing? Because I feel like this is
Now let's just keep going down this
all
thread.
right.
I like the thread we're on.
Same
We
here.
could talk about marketing another day.
All right. So we will definitely talk about the different types of marketing another day, because I'd love to get your perspective on that and how that kind of relates to this conversation.
Yeah, you're gonna have to listen to more episodes, man. If you want to hear all the stuff that's rolling around in this head, you know, you're not gonna get it all today.
Well, it's just so tough because we talk to so many different business owners, the owners of different businesses in every sense. Not only are they separate businesses, but they're all set up differently. They all go about their day to day differently. So when I'm having these conversations, there's just so many different examples I'm thinking to try to pull from that it is hard. There is so much nuance in here. It's not just binary. Are we growing or are we not growing? There's
Yeah.
so many things, so many variables, so many levers to pull, dials to twist. There's just so much in there that it really, if anyone's listening to this or listening to it after it's been recorded and is saying, hey, I got questions for Brad and Jake, and you didn't make it into the live chat, DM us. Let us know what questions you have, because it really does depend on your situation.
And I am totally cool. Like, if you're like, Brad does not know what the heck he's talking about, let us know in the chat too, man. I welcome that. I absolutely welcome that. You know, I think like, and I look in our, like in our business, right? We're having to increase the effort that we make if we want to continue on the trajectory that we want to be on as a business. And we've set goals and we want to continue down that path. More effort today is having to get put into going out and getting that business than ever before. And, you know, this much activity is not going to get this much results. We're going to have to accept that we're going to have to work twice as hard to get the same results. So we have to focus on growth. And so I think another part of growth that we should talk about is new niche growth, because this is something that you're going to have to think about if you provide a single service. Now,
And this is hot button. Everyone's talking about this.
There are some services that this economic downturn will not affect. likely it's not yours. Likely a change, you're going to experience less demand. And so the question then becomes, do you go out and try to get more of what you have when you know that the same amount of guys are fighting for less work? Or do you look for new ways to bring growth into your business, to grow into new niches? So what are you seeing, Jake? I mean, what do you I know you talk to a lot of business owners.
So the number one conversation, and I just had this conversation yesterday, has been about what can I add service wise, the ancillary business. And I think that's where you're going with this conversation, right?
It can be a lot of things. Yeah. I think that definitely fits.
So one thing can be different verticals you're selling to that you didn't know existed before. Like maybe you've only done residential and now you're looking at commercial and fleets and all that, right? But also then what else can I offer? For pressure washers, it could be, hey, maybe we throw windows in there. Maybe we talk about Christmas lights. I know they were at the huge convention and there were a couple different vendors that were discussing Christmas lights and the ability to do that. And that, although someone may tone down the level of Christmas lights they're going to put on their house, if they do that, that's something they'll do every year, whether it be adding pest control or just really thinking, what do I do? I come to the house and I do my service. Now, if you are a washer, you can think, hey, I'm at the house. What else can I do while I'm at the house? And try to think around that. You could try to be unique, but there are a lot of businesses that do more than one thing when they're at the house. So you can look at that and say, all right, maybe I don't do a gutter cleaning and I can add that as an upsell. So for me, I think it's a great opportunity now to step back and say, hey, how can I be more efficient by saying, hey, gas is expensive. It's tough to keep people on payroll. But now you can say, hey, well, they're at the house. What else can we add to kind of increase the value of that average ticket?
It is, I think that line of thought is a better survival mechanism than scaling back.
Absolutely. Because now you're poised. So now say maybe if pressure washing gets you $1 and doing the Christmas lights gets you $6 or gets you 60 cents, maybe at least you're able to keep food on the table, like metaphorically for your team members that are out there in the field. But now you still have them. They're happy. They are paid for. So now when things turn around and everything starts booming again, you can just transition and say, all right, the thing that was getting us 60 cents, now we're going back to the dollar thing and just maximize that way. So yeah, it's better than trying to shrink your business. I like to think of it more as making it more efficient, more lean, rather than not lean even because you're adding services. I think more
Diversified.
efficient. You're diversified. You're more lean and or not. You're more more diversified. You're more efficient because you're already there. It's now, yeah. What maybe when pressure washing takes a dip demand wise, you can find something that goes up demand wise. So now through your own business cycle, you can kind of balance it out by having one curve go one way and one curve's going the other way. But now you're kind of like plateauing revenue wise. I think that is a huge mindset shift too, to say, hey, why don't I take a look at when my demand is peaking and when my demand is tanking and say, hey, how do I flatten that out by adding new verticals, new people I'm selling to, and also new diverse offerings I have. You can that's actually the best way I think to look at it. Go plot out your revenue cycle and see, okay, in December it tanks. What can I add to kind of flatten my revenue in December or to increase my revenue in December? What do you think
Yeah.
about that, Brad?
I think it's a necessary thing. And again, we're going to have to start thinking and doing things that we might not have had to do before.
Mm-hmm.
That's what economic shifts expose. It's that old quote. Is it a Warren Buffett quote? And when the tide goes out, you see who was wearing underwear or whatever, who was wearing bottoms.
I love that.
And that's what happens. It exposes what we were getting away with and not doing things that we should have already been doing. So I think there's like three ways to think about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
At TChem, one of the founding principles of TChem has always been diversification. And the way that that has manifested itself most is in the first way we do this, which is I have a customer. How else can I meet my customer's needs? They called me for this, but what I've seen through getting to know them is that they have these 2 or 3 other needs.
Mm-hmm.
How do I start providing the solution for those needs, right? How do I fill that? It's good for them because they have to deal with less people that we already have a relationship. It's good for me because I'm not having to get another sale. Second sale is always easier, right? And it always makes more sense to have good long-term recurring relationships. So that's one way to do that. And so that's kind of that ancillary service path that
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about. I'm already getting a customer. How else can I serve them? And my caution to that is think of it in terms of service, not in sales. Uh, that would kind of be the first
I
thought.
and I'd even think of it as how can I increase my value to them, right?
How can I give them more value? I love
Mm-hmm.
that. The second way that we could approach this is we could say, I provide X service. What other clients outside of the ones that I am using today, that I'm going out and getting today, could use this service? And I think a perfect example the one I'm hearing about right now that I know there's a lot of resistance to is I wash houses, but my skill set also would allow me to wash fleet.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to do that. And I say nobody. There's a lot of people that don't want to do that because in a luxury market, you can raise your prices and your pay per hour on the job is really good. The washing house, it's a luxury item, right? Nobody needs to have their vinyl house washed, right? I mean, it is, right? It's not a need, it's a want.
Mm-hmm.
Trucks have to be washed, but in a needs business like that, they also have to do it very cost effectively because they cannot afford to just pay a luxury price for it. So the work is harder. It's more based on production and efficiency and less based on, I can just get a big margin because I can just upsell this to death. You're not upselling that. They get what they need so they don't get in trouble. They
Mm-hmm.
have to have their trucks clean. It's mandated. So I think there's that. What service do I provide today? Who's another client that could benefit from this service? It's not an easy route to go. It's much harder because now you've got to learn how to market and sell to a new audience who
Mm-hmm.
likely is going to behave different than your current audience. You got to find them. You got to get to know them. You got to learn how to talk to them. You got to stay in touch with them. You got to learn their language. The fleet world and the residential world, they don't use the same language, right? It's not the same at all. So challenging, but doable. And then I think the third way is to look at the people that are inbound to me now today. So let's say I'm going after residential people and I start to get insights from those people and I find out, oh, residential clients need something new. So I am going to start pivoting what I offer. I'm going to kind of bring a new niche to this same group of clients. I don't mean like an ancillary. So I'm not saying I sell X and I'm going to bring Y on the back end. I'm saying I'm going to do X version 2.0 because I see that the demand for X is going down. So instead of relying on these same people to buy it and then buy Y, I'm going to say they're not really wanting X right now. I have to mold what I do, but I still want to sell to these same people because I know how to get them. I know how to get in front of them. I know how to talk to them.
Yeah.
They're telling me that the problem has shifted. So I know that's really like big picture. So I apologize for not being tactical, but I'm trying to explain the concept. How do I offer them? What do they need today? And we do this by asking them questions. So, it's a difference in second sale versus changing what my first sale is, changing what I'm going after with the same people. And so maybe my home services business today is washing houses, but tomorrow has to be different. So I think the asphalt thing is a good example. So maybe my business today is, I do a lot of flat work in commercial settings. But to continue my growth forward, I'm going to start having to market to some of these same people. I'm going to start marketing at pavement sealing and striping services. Not so much as to all my current clients, which you should, but more so because I see that there's a demand for this. I can build demand for this. It's a need they have. I'm going to go fill that, but I'm going to be marketing to the same kinds of people because I like working with these people.
Absolutely. It and yeah, it one thing I actually want to touch on again because this conversation naturally flows to it. Did we discuss market share growth? Did we touch on that?
No, we should.
Because that it's just as you're talking here, it's what's staring me in the face here is market share growth. I mean, when we pose the question, is now the time to grow? I'd say that's a question someone has to ask back to themselves: is do I want more market share? And I mean, the answer in most cases should be yes. And I think with everything we're talking about, there's a lot of different ways you could use this to grab more market share.
Yeah, I think that's the other kind of growth you have to think about. If I think about my company, right, and let's say I'm gathering fruit, right, and I've got a bushel basket I need to fill. That's what it takes to hit my goals, pay my guys, pay my bills, keep the lights on, feed my family. I got to fill this basket, and I go to an orchard to pick fruit, right? And there's 20 trees in that orchard, and it's always been easy to fill them up. But when the market shifts, it's like going to that orchard and realizing that the birds have eaten a lot of fruit this year. And I go through those same 20 trees and my basket's not full. So another way to grow is to go to more trees to
Hmm.
fill my basket. It might not mean filling 2 baskets, but it may mean filling my basket because now I got to go out and find 5 more trees. So if I serve this regional area, I got to go to the next regional area.
I love
Or if
that.
I'm doing marketing and I realize that the way that I'm marketing because I'm using SEO is only talking to 3% of the potential audience, I've got to go out and figure out how to talk to more of the people in the potential audience. Maybe I know that, you know, what was his name? Johnny John,
Oh, Jimmy John,
J-
or Jim John.
Jim John. Jim John's thinking about getting out of the business. He's ready to retire. A downturn is just more than he wants to deal with. I call Jim John up and I'm like, dude, um, things are kind of getting a little tougher. Would you be open to having a conversation about either partnering or me buying your business?
I love that, and I love the metaphor you used because that is such a you could have the basket of apples you're trying to fill. Maybe you're going to another orchard to get the apples. Maybe you're now supplementing that with some oranges, and that's the ancillary service. Maybe you throw a couple of bananas in there. It's another service you're doing. And then again, you could then say, "Hey, it doesn't just have to be me with the orange. What if I go hire this guy who's almost done? He's got the whole operation already going. So I go hire his basket and the guy holding his basket." So I love that metaphor. Did you come up with that? That's a really good metaphor, Brad.
It literally crossed my mind while we were talking.
That's great.
So,
And I'm glad we got to the acquisition as well. Sorry to interrupt. What were you gonna say there?
no. It worked. The metaphor worked. Thank goodness it wasn't totally broken because it fell out of my mouth. It's because it's all these months hanging around with Wesley,
Yeah, he's got a lot of
and
metaphors.
I don't want to be a turtle on a fence post with my metaphors. So, you got to talk to Wesley if you want to know what that means.
I have no idea. I'm just gonna
Uh,
smile and nod.
so, yeah, I think you have to increase market share is going to be a reality. Not, it might not be like, hey, I'm going to grow 50% this year, which is what we might have been thinking in an up market,
Hmm.
but it might be what's required to not lose, to not go down. But you have to evaluate what tools do you have at your disposal to do this. It goes back to what we said in the very beginning of the conversation. If you're not taking a realistic evaluation of what you possess. So like I know some business owners who are like the best marketers. They might wash houses for a living, but they can design and write advertisements like nobody's business.
Hmm.
They might wash houses for a living, but when you get them into a sales conversation, people will buy anything from them. And depending on what your skill set is, you might have resources set aside. You might have this, you might have that. You might have a staff that can lean into one of these strategies versus another, a team that works with you. You have to look at what resources you have and which strategy makes sense for you. Because at the end of the day, like some things, it doesn't make sense to go after ancillary services. That doesn't always make sense. Sometimes it does. Like Christmas lights have been really good to a lot of contractors. If the market continues to tighten, people might not pay somebody to do their Christmas lights.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, let me give you a better example. If I wash new construction houses in entry-level neighborhoods, around here, I wash $280,000 to $350,000 houses, which is crazy. That's entry level. Another conversation. Used to be, I remember when it was like $100,000 for a new entry level house. I sounded like my father saying something like that,
Back in the day.
back in the day. So, but if I wash entry level houses and that's the clientele I have, probably going to them and being like, hey, would you like to pay me to hang your Christmas lights? They're like, no, we don't have the extra money for that. Versus if my clientele is, I go to the country club and I wash those houses and that's the people that I'm working in, the market I'm working in, they're going to pay people to hang their Christmas lights whether the market's up or down. So you have to know who your ideal customer is and where your strengths are to make these decisions. That's the unfortunate thing, is it does depend. And I always fear people that sell tactics and tools as solutions to wide problems. Like I have a real issue with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, I've got the solution. It's for everybody. And it's never is.
Yeah. It's not. Well, while everyone can pick out bits and pieces of it, yeah, you can't just plop a framework in everywhere and assume it's going to work. Even a franchise, you could have a Chick-fil-A in 30 different locations. It's going to perform differently in every location.
Well, yeah, we could say something. I think, like a franchise is a good example. If I said franchises are the key to starting a business, well, you might take that and go out and buy a Subway and make $30,000 a year and work 18 hours a day. Or you might take that information and go through Chick-fil-A school and make $300,000 your first year.
Mm-hmm.
They're both that, my advice says, go out and find this thing. There's always caveats to it. So, and I know that's obvious. Maybe it's ethereal. I don't mean for it to be either.
Well, one thing I thought of while you were talking about the Christmas lights that I just want to touch on is a conversation I had about the Christmas lights prior. Was someone was arguing in the home inspection space, hey, I want to add Christmas lights, but I just heard they're not profitable. Well, at the end of the day, if you're worried about just having revenue come in, you could add something like that brings revenue, and it might not necessarily be very profitable, but now you're getting the lifeblood in your business that's going to ride you through the storm. And then when you come out of that, now you still have the capacity because you didn't have to let someone go. So that's why earlier when I was talking, you just reminded me of that. And that's why earlier when I was talking about you can do something that gets you a little bit less now. What did I say? The 60 cents versus $1 thing. And then you can switch just because that's what keeps you at the capacity you need to be at. So you just reminded me of that. It doesn't always have to be the most profitable thing. It can be just the best service I can offer now because it makes sense and I'm at the house and it just all cost wise keeps me going.
Keeping your good people, keeping your team paying their bills and being able to pay them is a real consideration for a growing small business.
It's priceless.
It is. And so, I agree with you. I'm saying all this to say I absolutely agree that sometimes bringing on a service that keeps your good people able to stay on there so you can keep paying them. It might not be lucrative. It might not be the big picture. It might not be the 5-year goal, but it's important. Small businesses kind of can fall into that trap of they don't have the money. They just let people go. I don't have the work. You can't survive on 10 hours a week. I can't pay you 40. And big businesses let people go because they don't seem to value talent. But if you want your business to thrive when things are different, it's going to be your team. It's going to be the talent in your team. So absolutely retaining good talent, whatever growth it takes to keep your talent alive and there and with you and doing as a team. It's going to be a team effort though, and that's another thing I think, we've learned from Wesley and Dirk and all them is you got to create a culture where the team's like, look, as a leader, I want everybody who's here, whether it's one helper or 150 people on your team, I want everybody here to have a job 18 or 24 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
But to do that, we are all going to have to lean in. Here is the initiative. And you better have something that they can understand. And if you don't know where you're headed, no one else is going to know where you're headed. And if you don't know where you're headed, you're going to get moved around by the winds of emotion and the daily ups and downs and whatever input is coming in and affecting you that day. Even if it's just you got to know, you have to have the purpose of strategy is to create guardrails around the tactics and the actions that you take on a daily basis. And you might as well shoot for the moon and grow. One of my favorite sayings in leadership is from a book by a guy named Og Mandino. And, he said, better to aim for the moon and hit an eagle than to aim for the eagle and strike a rock. So when you aim for growth, it doesn't mean making foolhardy decisions or spending resources you don't have. It means we're going to set a mission and we're going to go after. We're not going to say there's nothing out there. We're going to find what there is to get. Now, the end result may not be revenue growth, but it can mean revenue stability and revenue survival.
Yeah,
for your company.
absolutely. And so,
Anything else we need to do?
well, I want to go back to what's the verdict on growth. And to me, the question we posed at the beginning here, is it the wrong time to grow or is it the time to grow? My answer to that, I think the verdict, let me know if you disagree with me, Brad, but I think after this conversation, the verdict is it is always time to grow. Now, that depends what kind of growth you're talking about, but you should always be trying to grow and improve yourself, personal, systems, sales growth. No matter what it is, there should be always some sort of growth going on so you can improve your business, be ready to pivot, be aware of what's going on so you can have those long-term plans.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks, Brad. So I'm wondering, are there any questions that anyone has? Pose them in the chat now or reach out to us and let us know, as this will go up as recorded. Let us know what questions you have regarding this, just because I know, Brad, I'm thinking of so many different variables we could bring in here. It's tough to give an answer for every business. So let us know if you have any specific questions.
Yes, please let us know. I am being reminded that I do have to get to an appointment in town and I've got to bounce out, but it's always awesome to have these conversations, Jake. If anybody's listening at the end of the show, hey, thanks. Thanks for being on. Thanks for listening. If you're just hopping on now, I'd love for you guys to subscribe to find us on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
The podcast, there are awesome interviews on here with people that are way smarter than me, talking
And
about
me.
all aspects of this industry. On the Under Pressure podcast, you can find it anywhere podcasts are. We're going to be here, whether you're watching us on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you watch us. We'll be back here next week to get into some more things. Maybe we'll talk about marketing. Maybe we can get Marvin on. And we can chat a little bit about bringing on what the asphalt world looks like, how maybe you can incorporate that into your business. But as always, you have to grow. The world is a changing place. Growth is necessary. Just frame what that means for you today. So thanks, Jake. Anything else you want to add before we hop off?
Yeah, one thing I want to add is if you like this podcast, the live show or the podcast Under Pressure itself, please do us a favor. As Brad said, like, share, subscribe. But most importantly, what I just said there, share. Please, if you know anyone that this podcast could help, share it with them. I'm sure that there are a ton of people you know in your community that could benefit from this podcast. Even if they're not a pressure washer, a lot of this might translate. So share this, like it, subscribe, and please review. But yeah, as Brett said, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, you can find Under Pressure everywhere. So go give us some listens. And if you have any topics or any guests you want us to feature on the show, let us know and we'll make it happen.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. It's been fun, Jake. We'll see you next time.
All right. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Brad. I'll see you next time.